Good morning, guys. Today we are going to understand another tool that developers should know, that is Nexus repository. So what is this Nexus repository and where we are going to use Nexus repository in our project? Nexus is called as Artifactory server, and this Nexus repository is used to store project artifacts like jar files or war files. We are going to store by using Nexus repository, and Nexus repository is also used as Maven remote repository. When we discussed about Maven, we discussed that there are three types of repositories in the Maven. One is called local repository, another one is called central repository, and another one is called remote repository. So remote repository is used to share or is used to store shared libraries. Okay, we will talk about what is that shared library. So we are trying to understand what is Nexus. Nexus is called as Artifactory server, and it is used to store project artifacts. So whenever we build our project, a jar file will be created or war file will be created. That jar file or war file we need to store for the backup. So that's why we are going to use Artifactory server. And we are also used to store shared libraries. Shared libraries is nothing but some common jar files. Okay, in our company, we are developing multiple projects. For multiple projects, some common libraries are required. Those common libraries are called as shared libraries. Okay, shared libraries is nothing but the jar files which are required for several projects in the same company. Those are called as shared libraries. In the real time, every company will maintain their own remote repository for the project's development. So as part of our training, we are creating a Maven project and we are downloading the Maven dependencies from central repository and we are developing the projects. But in the real time, we can't connect with the central repository due to company security issues. We can't connect to the central repository to download the dependencies. So every company will maintain their own remote repository to maintain shared libraries. So that's where this Nexus repository comes into picture. So what is the Nexus? Nexus is called as Artifactory server that is used to store project artifacts. So whenever you build a project, a jar file or war file will be created. In order to store that jar file or war file, we will use this Nexus, and it is also used to store. It is also used to store shared libraries. So what is the meaning of shared libraries, guys? So just now we discussed shared library is nothing but the common jar files required for multiple projects. Shared library is nothing but the common jar files required for multiple projects. So basically, in every company, remote repository will be available. By using this Nexus, we are going to maintain our remote repository in the company. Now, what is the difference between Nexus and GitHub? In the GitHub also we are creating the repositories. What is the difference between the Nexus repository and the GitHub repository, guys? What is the difference between Nexus and GitHub? Can anyone tell me? What is the difference between Nexus and GitHub? Can anyone tell me that one?
GitHub is used to maintain source code repository, whereas a Nexus is used to maintain the libraries or jar files.
Yes. So GitHub is used to store source code of the project. GitHub is used as version control system, and GitHub is used for storing our project to source code. GitHub is used as version control system, and GitHub is used for storing our project source code. Whereas Nexus is used as Artifactory server, and Nexus is used for storing project artifacts and shared libraries. Both are different, guys. Nexus and GitHub is not same. GitHub is used as version control system, and the GitHub is used for storing our project to source code. Nexus is used as Artifactory server, and Nexus is used for storing project artifacts and shared libraries. So how to set up Nexus server? So I have prepared one document. By using this, we can set up Nexus as a Docker container. How we used SonarQube as a Docker container. Similarly, we can use Nexus also as a Docker container. So here I have given steps how can we set up our Nexus server. Now let us go to our GitHub URL. So how to set up Nexus as a Docker container. So how we have done the Sonar setup using Docker, in the same way Nexus also we can set up by using Docker. So we need to create one Linux machine in the AWS cloud. Then we need to install Docker in that Linux machine. And then once the Docker is installed, then we can start Nexus as a Docker container that will run on the port number 8081. Then we need to get the Nexus port number, password, then we can log in into our Nexus server. Okay, let me log in into my AWS cloud. Let me set up Nexus as a Docker container. I'm trying to log in into my AWS cloud account. So once we log in into the AWS cloud, go to EC2 service and set up one machine. Go to EC2 service and set up one Linux machine, guys. Okay, so EC2 dashboard, I'm in the Mumbai region. Now let me go here and click on launch instance in order to set up this. Click on launch instance. So here you can give a name for the machine. I'm giving the name as Nexus server. I'm giving the name as Nexus server. Amazon Linux machine. Here I have given Amazon Linux machine we have to take, and we need to take T2 medium. If you go for T2 micro, it will give you only 1 GB memory. That is not sufficient for the Nexus setup. So that's why I'm using T2 medium instance, which is having 4 GB memory, guys. T2 medium instance is available, which is having 4 GB memory. Then key pair is available. Select the key pair. AWS Lab key pair is available. So security group, I'm taking the existing security group. Default security group I'm selecting. Then click on launch instance. So I'm trying to create one EC2 instance with the instance type as T2 medium. Then I'm using AWS Lab key pair, existing security group. Click on launch instance. So with this, our EC2 instance got created. Now let us connect with that EC2 instance by using SSH client. You can use Mobile Extreme or you can use Git Bash also. So let me try to connect with that EC2 instance by using SSH client. I will use Git Bash as a SSH client and I will try to connect with this machine. So let me connect with this. Click on connect. SSH command I'm taking. So let me go to my key pairs folder. Here our AWS Lab key pair is available. Open this Git Bash. Open the Git Bash and try to connect with that. Open the Git Bash and try to connect with that. Yeah, now connect with this machine. SSH client, yes, I connected. Once connected to this machine, now we need to install Docker. So simply let us copy this script and execute it. Okay, with this, Docker is going to install in that machine. Docker software will be installed in that machine. Once the Docker is installed, I'm trying to log out from the machine and I will try to connect with the machine again. I'm closing the session and I will connect with that. Yes, you see, I got logged out from the machine. So I lost the connection with that machine. Now I came back to my key pairs folder. Let me use up arrow and execute that SSH command. Now I connected with this machine again. Now you can check Docker images. So currently there are no Docker images available. Currently there are no Docker images available now. We can connect with this machine. So currently there are no Docker images available now. we can connect with this machine. Fine. So we connected, Docker is installed. Now we need to run this one as a Docker container. So remember, Nexus server will run on the port number 8081. Copy this command and run the Nexus as a container. So it is not able to find the Nexus image in the machine. So it is downloading that Nexus image and it is installing that, it is running the Nexus server as a Docker container. It is running Nexus as a Docker container. That Nexus will run on the port number 8081. So what we need to do? Enable 8081 port number in the security group inbound rules and access our Nexus server. So this is our machine. Our machine is running. We installed Docker in that machine. So let us connect with that machine and let me enable the port number in the security group. Go to the security group and go to the inbound rules. Edit the inbound rules of this security group to allow the traffic. Okay, edit the inbound rules. The port number 8081. So 8081 Nexus will use, right? Now, anywhere IPv4, I'm allowing the traffic. Sonar Cube will run on the port number 9000. Nexus will run on the port number 8081. Click on Save Rules. Fine, we are able to save that. Now go back to the machine and use its public IP address. Take the public IP. Go to browser. Public IP colon 8081. Yes, Sonatype Nexus repository we are able to access. So Sonatype is the company who provided Nexus server for us. So this is our Nexus repository. So we need to log in into the Nexus in order to set up our repositories in the Nexus. So let's try to log in. So the username is admin. Password is available in the Nexus server. We need to copy that password. So here username we know, we can type as admin, but password which is available in the Nexus server. Where is the Nexus server? Nexus server is available in the Docker container. So you need to use Docker ps command and it will give you the container name for you. You need to use the Docker ps command. It will tell you the name of the container. The container ID and container name. Container name is a Nexus. So what we need to do here, you need to get the password by using this container ID win bash. So container ID we got. This is the ID of the container. So what we need to do? Docker exec-it, copy this container ID, then space /bin/bash. So with this I connected with the Docker container. After connecting with the Docker container, now execute this command which will give you password of the Nexus. Okay, before bash, this is the password. So don't take up to bash. So bash -4.4 is available now. So before that, whatever it is printing, that is called our Nexus password. Copy that Nexus password, then go here and give the password, sign in. So when you sign in here first time, help you complete the step next step. It is asking to update the password. So whatever we have done in the second project. So first time we are trying to log in, then it is asking to update the password. So let me set up my new password here. New password, next. Okay, I'm able to set up the password for this, then finish. So with this, I'm able to configure the password. Let me sign out. Now I logged out from the Nexus. Then sign in. I can give my username and I can give my password. Click on sign in. So with this, I'm able to sign in into the Nexus repository as a admin user. So with this, our Nexus setup is completed. So you need to be careful when you are dealing with the password of the Nexus. So how to get the password of the Nexus? Let me show you that process once again. Okay guys, so we are connected with this Docker machine. So Nexus is running as a Docker container. How to see the running containers in the Docker? By using Docker PS command. So Docker PS command will display what all the containers which are running in the Nexus. So there is one container running. This is the ID of the container. Now we should connect with the container. For that, we need to use a command docker exec -it space container ID. You need to paste it, then space /bin/bash. So with this, we connected with the container. Once we connected with the container, then we need to, here I have given container ID. By executing this, you will get the container. Then you need to pass that container ID and you need to execute this command. Then you need to execute the cat command, which will print the password of the Nexus. Okay, guys. Okay, now password is updated. Now, as I have updated the password, there is no such file or diary. Admin password is not available because I have reset that password. So before resetting, this password will be printed for you. You need to copy that password and you need to log in. So as I have already reset the password, that admin password is removed from there. You got my point. So we understood what is a Nexus and why we need to work with Nexus. Nexus is called as Artifactory server, guys. So in the real-time projects, Nexus repository is used to store project artifacts. When we package our project, a jar file or war file will be created. That jar file or war file we are going to store into Nexus repository for the backup. And in every software company, remote repository will be available to store the jars, shared libraries. By using this Nexus, we can set up remote repository also. Right. Now, difference between Nexus and GitHub. It is used as GitHub is used as version control system and it is used to store project to source code. Whereas Nexus is used as Artifactory server. Nexus is used for storing project build artifacts and shared libraries, right? How to set up Nexus? By using Docker. So Docker we are using as a containerization software. So we are running Nexus as a Docker container. Very easily you can set up Nexus by using this Docker container. Okay, so once it is done, next one, how to upload project artifact into Nexus repository. How can we upload project artifact into Nexus repository? Now, guys, our Nexus repository is ready. Now we need to understand how to upload our project artifact into Nexus repository. How to upload project artifact into Nexus repository. So when we package our Maven application, guys, it will generate a jar file or war file. That jar file or war file is called as build artifact. Okay, so let me open my IDE. Let me open my IDE. So we are having several Maven projects. So whenever we package our Maven project, a jar file or war file will be created. That jar file or war file we will call as project build artifact. So project build artifacts we will store into the Nexus repository for the backup purpose. Okay, so to store the project artifacts, we will create repositories in the Nexus. So in the Nexus, in which folder our jar files or war files should be stored. So we are having several Maven projects. So when we package our Maven project, a jar file or war file will be created. That jar file or war file is called as project artifact, build artifact. Project build artifacts we will store into Nexus for the backup purpose. So to store the project build artifacts, we are going to use Nexus repositories, right? So we are having two types of repositories in the Nexus to store our project build artifacts. We have two types of repositories in the Nexus to store the project build artifacts. So what are those two types? One is called as snapshot repository, guys. When we are storing artifacts in the Nexus, we are going to use two types of repositories. One is called as snapshot repository, guys, and another one is called as release repository. Sorry. One is called as snapshot repository, another one is called as release repository. I have a Maven project. My Maven project is packaged. If it is a normal application, jar file or war file will be created. Now we need to store that jar file or war file into Nexus repository. Project build artifacts we will store into Nexus for the backup purpose. To store the project artifacts, we will create the Nexus repositories. So we have two types of repositories in the Nexus to store the build artifacts. One is called as snapshot repository, another one is called as release repository. Sir, what is the difference between snapshot repository and the release repository? So if your project is under development, so you are doing the development of the project, as part of the development you are packaging your application. So if a project is under development, then the project artifacts will be stored into snapshot repository, guys. Okay, if a project is under development, then the project build artifacts we are going to store into snapshot repository. So if your project development is started, it is not completed, it is not delivered, okay, then the project which is under development, those project artifacts will be stored into snapshot repository. Now, if a project development completed and the project is released to the production, project development is completed and it is released to production, then the project artifacts will be stored into release repository. How to upload project artifacts into Nexus? Okay, so when we package our Maven application, it will generate a jar file or war file. That jar file or war file is called as project build artifact. Project build artifacts we will store into Nexus for the backup purpose. So to store the project artifacts, we will create Nexus repositories. So we have two types of repositories in the Nexus to store the artifacts, guys. One is called as snapshot repository. Another one is called as release repository. If a project is under development, then the build artifacts will be stored into snapshot repository. If a project development completed and released to production, then those build artifacts will be stored into release repository. Are you clear with my point? Okay. Now, I hope you got the clarity. What is the difference between snapshot repository and release repository? Guys, you got the clarity? What is the difference between snapshot repository and release repository? You got the clarity? What is the difference between snapshot repository and release repository? If a project is under development, then those artifacts will be stored into snapshot repository. If a project development is already completed, then it is called as release repository. Okay, so create repositories, create two repositories in the Nexus, one as snapshot, another one as release. So for the snapshot, what is the URL? Snapshot repo URL and release repo URL. Snapshot repository URL, release repository URL we need to create. Okay, how to create this snapshot repository and release repository? Go to our Nexus server. Go to Nexus server. Here settings option is available, guys. In the settings, there is an option called repositories. You logged in into the Nexus server. So here I will log in into the Nexus, my username and my password. I will log in. Now go to this settings option. Here you can see repositories option, create it. Now there are some repositories already available. Now I will create a new repository. Click on create repository. Maven hosted repository I am going to create. Maven 2 hosted repository. A name for the repository. So I am giving the name as Ashok IT snapshot repository. Ashok IT snapshot repository I am giving. Version policy, it is a snapshot. As the repository is a snapshot, I'm giving the version policy as a snapshot repository. Then click on create repository. So with this Ashok IT snapshot repository got created, copy the URL. Okay, go to repositories, Ashok IT snapshot repository, copy its URL. Okay, this is the URL of my snapshot repository. So this is public IP of our server. The machine in which the Nexus is running, Nexus server port number, repository, Ashok IT snapshot repository. Similarly, let me create release repository also. Create repository and Maven to hosted repository. Here, give the name. I'm giving the name as Ashok IT release repo. Now, version policy release, then click on create repository. So with this release repository also created, copy that URL, release repository URL. So create two repositories, one as a snapshot, version policy snapshot, another one as release. Repository type Maven to hosted, version policy based on the repository you can select. So for snapshot, version policy is a snapshot, and for the release, version policy we will use as release repository. Okay, now how we will configure these repositories in our pom.xml. Nexus repository details we will configure in pom.xml file like below. In our pom.xml file, we need to use a tag called distribution management. So in the distribution management repository, snapshot repository. Okay, so this is release repository, main repository. This will be configured, the release repository URL here. This is my release repository URL, and this is my snapshot repository URL. This is my snapshot repository URL. So in our project pom.xml, I started Nexus server as a Docker container. I logged in into the Nexus. I updated my password also, and I created snapshot repository and release repository. Snapshot repository is used for storing project artifacts. When the project is under development, then the project artifact will be stored to snapshot repository. If the project development is completed, then the project artifact will be stored to release repository. So how to configure these repositories in the pom.xml? So that's where I have taken these two URLs, and I am going to configure the distribution management. So this is repository means which is a release repository. Snapshot repository means the snapshot repository URL. Our repository URLs we need to configure in the pom.xml like this. Our repository details will configure in the pom.xml like this. Now go to here. Let us take any one project. Okay, let me create one new project. Spring starter project I am going to create. Start.spring.io. Let me create one Spring Boot REST API. Normal Spring Boot REST API I'm creating. So this one will be packaged as a jar file, Maven, Java 17 version, jar file, version, by default version coming as a snapshot. Snapshot nothing but under development. Click on next. So web starter we are using, dev tools we are using, REST API. Click on next, click on finish. So with this my Spring Boot project got created. The Spring Boot REST API got created. Close unrelated projects. Yes. Project downloading its dependencies. pom.xml is available, which is Maven configuration file. Guys, you understood what is Nexus? what is a Nexus repository and why we are using Nexus in the real time? What is the difference between Nexus and GitHub, and how to set up our Nexus server, and how to create repositories in the Nexus? What is the meaning of snapshot repository, and what is the purpose of release repository? How to create these repositories, okay, and how to configure those repositories in the pom.xml. Okay, my project got created. Go to pom.xml. I'm not writing any code, that's not required. Okay, pom.xml file is available. Now here properties section available and dependencies section is available. Properties available and dependencies section is available. Now we need to configure. Now we need to configure the dependency management. These are the URLs in the pom.xml. Okay, above our dependencies, I'm going to configure dependency management, guys. So inside the dependency management, I configured my repository details. One is the release repository, another one is snapshot repository. So we need to write like this: distribution management. This is a repository, and this is another repository. This is release repository URL. This is release repository URL, and this is snapshot repository URL. Release repository URL and snapshot repository URL is available. Okay, guys. Now, here, when we build our project, that project artifact should be stored into Nexus repository. When we build our project, it should store project artifact into Nexus repository. Okay, next, how to build our project. So here we need to execute one goal called, after configuring these details, we need to execute one goal, clean deploy. Once these details are configured, then we can run below Maven goal to upload build artifacts to Nexus server. So what is that goal? MVN clean deploy. So we can run one goal, MVN clean deploy goal, so that this Maven project will be packaged as a jar file, and that jar file should be uploaded into Maven jar file. Maven project jar file should be uploaded into Nexus repository. So in the Nexus, there are two repositories available. One is a release repository, another one is snapshot repository. Sir, our project will be packaged as a jar file. Na? Our project will be packaged as a jar file. That jar file will be uploaded to release repository, or that jar file will be uploaded to snapshot repository. It depends on our project version. It depends on project version. If a project version contains snapshot keyword, then it will be uploaded to snapshot repository. If a project version change it to release, if you change the version to release, then it will be uploaded to release repository. So whenever we build this application, artifact will be generated. Jar file or war file will be generated. That jar file or war file should be uploaded to release repository, or it should be uploaded to snapshot repository. It depends on version of the project. So if the project version is a snapshot, that project artifact will be uploaded to snapshot repository. If the project version is release, then that project artifact will be uploaded to release repository. Are you guys able to understand? Note, based on the version name available in the pom.xml file, it will decide artifact should be stored into which repository. If a version having snapshot, upload to snapshot repository. If the version is having release, then upload the artifact to release repository. Are you guys able to follow me? Are you guys able to follow me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So whenever we execute clean deploy goal, right, internally it is going to execute compile goal, test goal plus package goal plus install goal plus deploy goals. So when you use deploy, all these goals will be executed. Our project will be compiled, our project will be packaged, our project will be installed into local, then finally our project will be deployed into that Nexus repository. And one more small setting we need to do. So our Nexus repository having username and password. Am I configuring that Nexus username and password anywhere to connect with the Nexus server? Maven project available in my local system. Maven project is available in my local system. From here, I am running. From here, I am running Maven goal. When I run the Maven goal from here, it should connect with the Nexus server, which is available in the AWS cloud. So security issue. We need to configure our Nexus username and password. Then only this Maven project can upload this artifact into Nexus repository. First, without configuring the username and password, let us try to do that. So we are done with everything. We created two repositories. One is a snapshot repository. Another one is release repository. What is the difference between snapshot and release? If this project is under development, then the project artifacts will be stored into snapshot repository. If a project development is already completed, then that project is called as release project. Okay, so snapshot repository, release repository. If the project is under development, then artifact will be stored into snapshot. If a project development already completed and released it to production, then the project artifacts will be stored into release repository. Okay, create two repositories, one as a snapshot, another one as release. This is snapshot repository URL and this is release repository URL. So Nexus repository details we will configure in the pom.xml like below. Okay, so two repositories I created. Repository means release, snapshot means a snapshot. Now once these details are configured, we can execute clean deploy. So when we execute clean deploy, what is the meaning? It will build our project, it will upload the artifact to Nexus. In the Nexus there are two repositories available. Our artifact will go to which repository now? It depends on version tag in our pom.xml. So if the project version contains a snapshot, that means it is a snapshot repository. It will go to the snapshot repository. If the version is released, then it will be uploaded to release repository. Clear? Now, let us try to execute this Maven goal. Right click on this project, run as Maven build. So what is the goal we need to give? Clean deploy. So let me give clean deploy goals here. Click on apply, click on run. You can execute from here or you can execute from the command prompt also. Already Maven we configured in the Windows machine. We can execute from command prompt as well. Maven build process is in progress. Clean, compile, test, package. The goals are getting executed. Jar file is created. Downloading some required dependencies from the central. Install goal. Now you see deployment. Now you see deployment. It is trying to upload. It is trying to upload our artifact into repository. It is trying to upload the artifact into repository, but build got failed. So everything got success. Our project package compilation got success. Clean plugin got executed, target folder deleted, compilation got completed, test got completed successfully, project packaging as a jar file, jar also created successfully, it installed that successfully. It is going to upload the artifact into local repository first, that is done. Then deployment started, default deploy. First it is downloading from the Nexus repository, the repository details it is downloading from the Nexus. then it will, after downloading successful, then it will upload the artifact to Nexus. But here uploading got failed. Why the uploading got failed? Because Nexus server credentials we have not configured. So we need to configure Nexus server credentials in our system. Then only this Maven project can connect with that Nexus server to upload the artifact to the Nexus server. So where we need to configure that? So Maven already we installed in our system. Maven home we configured. Okay. So if we go to program files, Apache Maven is available. So in the Apache Maven configuration, there is a settings.xml file is available. So go to this settings.xml file in the Maven home. In the Maven home, settings.xml file is available. In this settings.xml file, we need to configure Nexus details. Okay. So server, we need to add username is admin, password. So password is incorrect here. My password I given as Nexus today. So you need to go to Maven home where you have configured Maven in your system. You need to go to Maven home where you configured. Now in my system, Maven home. So you can check it in the environment variables. Maven home is available. Go to environment variables, Maven home. See program files, Apache Maven. You can see here, this is the path of the Maven home. Apache Maven 3.9.8. So you take this path, you go to that path. I'm not changing the path here, guys. So now I'm just going to that path. I'm just going to that path. In the C program files, Apache Maven is available. So this is the Maven home. Here conf directory. In the conf directory, settings.xml file is available. This is Maven settings file. Go inside this file. Here you can find out one tag called server stack. Inside the servers, we need to configure our Nexus server credentials. So ID is Nexus. So if you see in our pom.xml also, I have given one ID. For the repositories configuration, I have given one ID. So this ID and this ID should match. And this is username of my Nexus server and my password is Nexus only. So I'm configuring my username and password. Save this file. Now let us go to our IDE. Let me run the Maven build again. Run as Maven build. The goals I need to use: clean, deploy. Okay, click on apply and run. So if you see in our pom.xml, project version is available as a snapshot. That means this project artifact should go to snapshot repository. This is a Spring Boot REST API. It will be packaged as a jar file. That jar file should be uploaded into Nexus repository. In the Nexus, snapshot available, release available. As my project version is a snapshot, it should upload into snapshot repository. Again, the build got failed. It is unable to upload the artifact into Nexus repository. It is saying unauthorized. Okay, that means the IDE taking Maven from different location. Let me check it. Run as Maven build. Okay, so from where it is taking the Maven file, guys? You check it. From which location it is loading the settings.xml? Can you see the IDE taking the Maven settings from which location? Can you see in the window from which location it is taking the settings.xml? See users admin.m2 settings.xml. This IDE is taking the settings.xml from the Maven local repository. So let me go to Maven local repository. See users admin.m2 repository. Here .m2. In the .m2 only settings.xml file is available. In the .m2 settings.xml, here there is no settings.xml file available. So let me give settings.xml file from this location. IDE user settings. I'm giving the settings.xml. Then I'm giving clean deploy. I'm giving the path of our settings.xml file. Click on apply, click on run. It should recognize where the settings.xml file available. In that settings.xml file, our Maven server credentials are configured. Yes. This time it is uploading. Now, when I am executing this Maven build from the IDE, it was loading, it was checking for the settings.xml file from the local repository. So run as Maven build. So here by default it is checking for the settings.xml in the local repository. In that location, settings.xml file is not available. My settings.xml file is available in the Maven home conf directory. So I have given path of the settings.xml in which I configured my Nexus server details, and I am able to execute Maven clean deploy. So when I execute clean deploy, my build got success. You can see the deploy goal is executed. It downloaded Nexus information, then it uploaded our project artifact to Nexus server, and we got build success. Now you see it uploaded the project to the repository. Now it is uploaded to which repository? Is it uploaded to release repository or it is uploaded to snapshot repository, guys? The artifact is uploaded to release repository or the artifact is uploaded to snapshot repository? It is uploaded to snapshot repository. Why it uploaded to snapshot repository? Because my project version is available as snapshot. Now go here, check it. Is it really uploaded the artifact to the snapshot repository? Go to this browse section, go to browse, go to the browse option, check the snapshot repository, open the snapshot. Yes, our Ashoka it is Spring Boot REST API snapshot version is available. This is the project snapshot, and if you expand this, you can see our project jar file is available. This is path of our jar file. I am giving this path in the chat box. If you click on this, you should be able to download the jar file. Are you guys able to download that jar file from the Nexus repository? Are you guys able to download the jar file from the Nexus repository? Yes. As our project version having snapshot, this artifact is uploaded to snapshot repository. Now, can we change the version and can we try to upload to the release repository? Now currently go to the release repository. In the release repository, if you go to the browse section, here browse section is available. Go to release repository. Currently no contents found in the release repository. Currently there are no contents available in the release repository. So in the snapshot repository, artifact is uploaded. You can see the jar file is available in the snapshot. But once you go to release repository, currently there are no jars available. The artifact is not available in the release. Now go to our project. Let me change the version from the snapshot to release. I'm giving the keyword as release. Okay, so you can change the version according to your requirement. If the generally industry standard, if a project is under development, version will be available as a snapshot. If a project development is completed, then we will keep it as a release. Okay, guys. Now clear this. Now let me do the Maven build again. Clear this and let me do the Maven build again. Okay. So for this, right click, run as Maven build and path of the XML. So currently it is taking XML file from the local repository, but my XML file is available in the Maven home. Okay, so take the path of your settings.xml in which Maven server credentials are configured. Okay, now goals I'm giving as clean deploy. Okay, then settings.xml file path I am providing. If you run from the command prompt, then you no need to specify this path. When you run from the command prompt, directly it will take from the Maven home only. Now settings.xml file location I have given, clean deploy goal I have given, version also change it to release. Click on apply, click on run. Now see the console. Deploy goal. Now it is going to release repository. As the project version is changed to release, now the project artifact is uploaded to release repository. So let me go here and let me check it. Refresh. Now earlier in the release repository, there is nothing available. Now open the release repository. Now the artifact is uploaded to release repository. Release repository artifact jar is also available. So if I copy this address, if I share in the chat box, you can hit this URL, then one more jar file will be downloaded, that is the release jar. Snapshot jar file is available, release jar file is available. So with this we are able to upload project artifacts into Nexus repository for the backup. Nexus Artifactory server, it is used to store project build artifacts. When we build our project, a jar file or war file will be created. That jar file or war file we can upload into our Nexus repository. In the Nexus, we are having two types of repositories. One is called release repository, another one is called snapshot repository. So we need to configure Nexus server details in the Maven settings.xml. Okay, we need to configure, we need to add Nexus server details in the Maven settings.xml. Let me give this a step before this. So how to upload project artifact into Nexus. Okay, once the Nexus setup is completed, configure Nexus server, configure Nexus server details in Maven settings.xml. Okay, in Maven. How to do that? So Nexus username, Nexus password, you need to configure in the Maven settings.xml. You can go to Maven home. In the Maven home, you can find out settings.xml. Under servers, you can configure this server. Your username and password you can configure. Once it is done, how to upload the artifact to Nexus? We created two repositories. Those repositories we configured in the form.xml. Then we executed clean deploy goal. Okay, so if the version is a snapshot, it is uploaded to snapshot repository. If the version is release, uploaded to release repository. Are you clear with my point? Are you guys clear with my point? Yes. Then next one, what is remote repository, guys? What is the meaning of remote repository in the real time? How to configure remote repository in the real time? So at the time of discussing Maven, we learned that Maven repositories concept. So whenever we create our project, Maven pom.xml file will be created. Okay. In that pom.xml file, we are configuring dependencies. Then by default, Maven will search for the dependencies in the local repository. Okay, local repo, which is .m2. So whenever we create a Maven project, then it will search for the dependencies in the .m2, which is local repository. So pom.xml always tries to get the dependencies from the local repository. Now, if the dependency not available in the local repository, then it will try to download the dependencies from central repository. Central repository is maintained by our Apache organization. Maven is a Apache software. So when you create a Maven project, by default, pom.xml file will be available. Pom.xml file will be available. In the pom.xml, we are adding the dependencies. So from where it is going to get the dependencies for our project build path? If you check the path of the Maven dependencies, they are coming from Maven local repository. C users, username, .m2 repository. That means all these dependencies are already downloaded into my Maven local repository. Maven taking these dependencies from my local repository. So that is the default behavior. Whenever you add a dependency in the pom.xml, by default, Maven will search for the dependencies in the local repository, which is .m2. If the dependency is not available in the .m2, then Maven will connect with the central repository, which is maintained by Apache organization. Okay, that is fine. When we are doing the trainings, when we are doing the classes, this is the approach we are following. You add one dependency in the pom.xml. Maven will search for that in the local repository. If available, it will download from the local to project build path. If it is not available in the local, then Maven will connect with the central repository, will download the dependency from the central repository to local, and always the dependency will be given to project from the local repository only. If it is not available, download from the central to local and give to the project. So that means every dependency will be downloaded only one time and it will be maintained in the local. Now suppose here, if the local repository is not having the dependency, as we discussed, it will download from the central to the local. From the local, it will give to the project. But in the real time, when we are working in the real time projects in the company, companies will not allow you to download the dependencies from the central repository due to security issues. Companies will not allow you to download the dependencies from the central repository. In the software company, they will maintain their own repositories to store the jars. Those repositories are called as remote repositories. Those repositories are called as remote repositories. So every software company will maintain their own remote repositories and they will store the jar files in their repository. So now what we need to do, our Maven project should connect with the remote repository and it should download the dependencies to the local. So when you are attending the classes, when you are doing the practice in your local system, you will connect with the central. But when you are working in the company project, when we are working in the company system, then you should connect with the remote repository. So what is this remote repository? Which is used to store the project related jar files, shared libraries. Okay. Now, so how to maintain these remote repositories in the company? So in the companies, people are going to use Nexus tool to set up the remote repository, or some companies will use JFrog tool to set up the remote repository. Any one. Some people will go for Nexus, some people will go for the JFrog in order to set up remote repositories for our application. Okay, so in this remote repository, shared libraries will be available, nothing but jar files. So we are working with multiple projects in the company. Multiple projects want to use some common jar files. So in the remote repository, we are going to share those common jar files. So now our Maven project should search for the dependencies in the local. If it is not there in the local, then it should download the dependencies from the remote, not from the central. Okay, so for training, you will connect with the central, but for the company project, you need to connect with the remote repository. So how to maintain the remote repositories? How companies will maintain the remote repositories? By using Nexus or JFrog, we will maintain remote repository. So what is the meaning of remote repository? So remote repository used for storing shared libraries, common jar files required for multiple projects. Remote repository used for maintaining shared libraries. What do you mean by shared libraries? Shared libraries nothing but common jar files required for multiple projects. The common jar files required for multiple projects, those are called as the shared libraries. Okay, if we want to use few jar files in multiple projects in the company, then we will use remote repository to store those jar files. Those are called as shared libraries. So what do you mean by remote repository? Remote repository is used for maintaining shared libraries, nothing but common jar files we are going to store by using remote repository. Remote repository is specific to our company projects. Remote repository is specific to only our company projects. Outside people should not connect with the remote repository. Only our company projects should connect with the remote repository. Okay. So what is remote repository? Remote repository used for maintaining shared libraries, nothing but common jar files that are required for multiple projects. So if we want to use the jar files, some common jars in multiple projects in the company, then we will use remote repository to store those jar files. So remote repository is specific to our company projects. Now, how to create a remote repository and how to upload the jars in the remote repository and how to configure that jar as a dependency. Guys, are you clear? Are you clear with what is remote repository now? Are you clear with the remote repository now? What is the purpose of remote repository and where we will use the remote repository? When we are working with Maven, three types of repositories will be available: local repository, central repository, and remote repository. Local repository available in our system. So when we add a dependency in the pom.xml, it will download from the local repository only. It will download from the local repository only. If it is not available in the local, then by default, it will connect with the central to download the dependency. If it is not available in the central, then failure. But in the real time, we should not connect with the central, we should connect with the remote. So how to create the remote repositories, how companies will maintain the remote repositories. To maintain the remote repositories, companies will use either Nexus or JFrog tools. Companies will use either Nexus or JFrog tools in order to maintain remote repository. So now let me create one remote repository. Let me upload one jar file in the remote repository and let me download the jars from the remote repository. Okay. So how to create a remote repository and upload the jar files. Okay. Remote repository is specific to only our project. So create remote repository and upload jar file in that. Create remote repo and upload jar file. That jar file we will use as a dependency in the another project. Okay. How to create a remote repository? So there is a process we need to follow. We should go to the settings option, go to settings option, go to repositories, Maven hosted, give a name for the repository and complete the process. So now go to Nexus. Here settings option is available. Repository is available. Already we created two repositories. These repositories are uploaded to our artifacts. Now create another repository, Maven to hosted. Okay, repository name, I'm giving a name for this, which is Ashok IT remote repo. Ashok IT remote repo we are giving for that. Now I'm not changing any version policy, so you can keep mixed also, anything is fine, it doesn't make any difference. Okay, so I'm giving the Ashok IT remote repo. Click on create repository. So with this, my remote repository got created. This is the URL of my remote repository. Okay, so repository got created. remote repository URL. This is my remote repository URL. So with the above steps, we are able to complete our repository creation, and this is the URL of the repository. Now we need to upload a jar file into repository. Remote repository created. Now upload jar file into remote repository. Any jar file that you want to use in other projects, any dependency that you want to use in other projects, you can upload into remote repository. So you can take one Maven project and you can package it as a jar file. Okay, so let me go to our classes, JRTP, Maven practice we have done. Let me find any jar available. Loans app, okay, it is not there. Any jar file that you have in your system, any jar file that you have in your system, you can upload into that repository. For example, Jipkin jar is available. Jipkin server jar file is available. You can use that jar file or any other jar file that you are having. Okay, my first application jar file is available. My Maven project, first time when we create a Maven project, one jar file is created. So let me take this jar file, something I am giving the name as password utils.jar. Okay, I'm taking some jar file. This is a dummy jar file, guys. Take one Maven project, package it as a jar file, password utils jar. I'm naming it as a jar. It is a dummy jar file. Now let me upload that jar file into remote repository. So how to upload that jar file into remote repository? Now, so go to here, the steps available, guys. Upload the jar file into remote repository. You can go to browse section, select the remote repository, upload the jar. For your jar, give the dependency. So other projects will use your jar file as a dependency. So whatever the jar file that we are uploading to the remote repository, for that jar file, we are giving some dependency details so that other projects will use our jar as a dependency. So other projects will download this jar file from the remote repository as a dependency. As of now, we are downloading the dependencies from the central. As of now, we are downloading the dependencies. These all dependencies are coming from the central. Now, whatever the jar file I am having, I will keep the jar file in the remote repository. Now I will download it from the remote repository. How to do that? Go to the repository, browse section, Ashok IT remote repository is available. Open this one. Upload a component for the remote repository. Upload a component for the remote repository. So here, choose the file. Which jar file that you want to upload? That file is password utils jar is available. Password utils jar is available. Extension jar. The extension of the file is jar. Okay. Then what is the group ID? I'm giving in.ashokit, artifact ID, password utils, version 1.0. Okay. Generate a POM file with these coordinates. Packaging format is jar only. Okay. Click on upload. So whatever the jar I have in my system, I am going to upload that jar into remote so that other projects can download the jar file from the remote. Okay, so I am going to this browse section, discard these changes. I'm going to this browse section, remote repository available. Currently nothing available in the remote repository. Upload a component. Which component do you want to upload? Jar file. Password utils jar file, I have uploaded. Extension jar. Okay, what is the group ID? You can give anything. In.ashokit, artifact ID I am giving, version I am giving as 1.0. Now generate a POM with these coordinates, click on upload. So with this, my jar file is uploaded into remote repository. Jar file is uploaded to remote repository. Now for this jar file, the dependency will be available, guys. Usage. So this is the dependency of our jar. So whatever the jar file is available in our system, that jar file is uploaded into remote repository. So password utils jar is uploaded 1.0 version. So this is the dependency. Now, in our company, any project who want to use this jar file, they can take this dependency from the remote repository. So now copy this dependency, add this dependency in our project. Okay. So some dependencies are coming from the central, some dependencies should come from the remote. So this dependency is not available in the central repository. This dependency is available in the remote repository. So what is that remote repository? My Nexus repository, which is used to maintain shared libraries. Any jar files which are common, any jar file which is common for multiple projects, those jar files we are going to keep in the remote repository. Now, for that dependency, the pom.xml details are available. Take that information and add that in our pom.xml. Now, my Maven should download this dependency from the remote repository. Now, I don't need the distribution management, remove this. Okay. So when I build my Maven project, it should download this dependency from the remote repository. Let us do the Maven build. I added my dependency. It is available in the central or it is available in the remote, guys. Whatever the dependency I added, it is available in the central repository or it is available in the remote repository. Come on. Whatever the dependency I added in the pom.xml, whatever the dependency I added in the pom.xml, is it available in the central repository or is it available in the remote repository? Come on, can you tell me that? Whatever the dependency I added, the dependency jar file is available in the central or it is available in the remote? Available in the remote. So let us see, Maven is able to download that or not. Refresh, right click, run as Maven build. Just a clean package. So when I do the clean package, Maven will try to download the dependency from the central. Let us verify. Yes. Build is success or build is failed? Build is success or build is failed? Failed. Why? It is checking for this jar file in the local, not available. Then by default, Maven is checking for this dependency in the central. It is not available in the central. But where that dependency available? In the remote. Does my Maven project knows about the remote repository or my Maven project don't know about the remote repository? My Maven project knows about the remote repository or my Maven project don't know about the remote repository? I know what is my remote repository, what is the URL of my remote repository. But does our Maven knows about the remote repository or Maven don't know about the remote repository? It don't know. So we need to configure remote repository details in the pom.xml. Where is our remote repository and what is our remote repository? We need to configure in the pom.xml. So this is my remote repository URL. This is my remote repository URL. Take this dependence URL, go to pom.xml. Above the dependencies, we need to configure our remote repository details. So I'm telling to Maven, boss, some dependencies are available in the remote repository. So this is the URL of the remote repository. So if the dependency not available in the local, then you need to search in the remote repository and you need to download from the remote repository. Okay. Now go to pom.xml, configure these details. Okay. So we are able to upload our dependency in the remote repository. After uploading this jar file in the remote repository, we got the pom.xml. We are adding pom.xml in our dependency details in our pom.xml. Then we need to add remote repository details in the pom.xml above the dependency tag. You observe. This is my remote repository details I configured in pom.xml. All right. So what is remote repository? Remote repository used for maintaining shared libraries. What do you mean by shared libraries? Common jars required for multiple projects. So if we want to use jar files in the multiple projects, then company will use remote repository to store those jar files or to store those libraries. Okay. Remote repository is specific to our company projects, guys. Only company specific jars will be available in the remote repository. So create remote repository and upload a jar file. Okay, so this is the process. Any jar file you can take and you can upload in the remote repository. So my remote repository got created and I uploaded my jar file in the remote. When I'm uploading, I have given the details like this. Okay, then for that dependency got generated. That dependency I am configuring in the pom.xml, and my remote repository details also I am configuring in the pom.xml. Now let me do the build. Let me check, is it going to download the dependency or not. Run as maven build. Again, settings.xml path I have to give. It is available in the C users C program files. Or else I can do one more thing also. I will take the settings.xml and I will keep in that local repository. Then problem will be solved. Take the settings.xml. Let me go to the maven local repository. It is searching in the local repository every time. Yeah. Let me add it here. Settings.xml file I kept in the local repository, which is taking by my IDE by default. So I no need to give the path every time. So in this location, it is searching for the settings.xml. I added my settings.xml here. Goals, clean package, apply, run. Now see, is our Maven project able to connect with the remote repository or not? Is it able to connect with the remote repository, and is it able to download the dependencies? Now build got success. Now our build got success. So that means, what is the meaning of that, guys? Now our project build got success. So what is the meaning of that? Is it able to download the dependency? Is it able to download the dependency from the remote repository? Is it able to download the dependency from the remote repository? Refresh. You see Maven dependencies, password utils. It downloaded the dependency from remote repository to my local repository. Now it is pointing the jar file from the local. That means it downloaded that dependency from the remote repository to my local repository. So in the real time, when we are working with the project in the real time, so we need to upload artifacts into Nexus repository, and we need to download the shared libraries from the remote repository. So how to work with remote repository? What is remote repository? Remote repository used for maintaining shared libraries, nothing but common jar files required for multiple projects. So now, how to create a remote repository and how to upload a jar file. I created a remote repository and I uploaded jar file. For that, I have given dependency details. So that jar dependency I configured in my pom.xml, and my remote repository details also I configured in the pom.xml. After adding the remote repository details in the pom.xml, I have executed mvn clean package. I have executed mvn clean package. Then it is downloading the dependency from remote repository to our local repository. Are you clear? Sometimes there is a chance of getting some HTTP blocker issues, guys. I'm not getting the HTTP blocker issue, but you may get the HTTP blocker issue here, mirror details available. If you are getting HTTP blocker issue, that means by default that HTTP blocker will not allow you to download. If you get that blocker issue, make below change in settings.xml, in the maven settings.xml. So whatever the blocker is available, so you make the mirror of that blocker issue as a dummy, and you URL make it as a 00 blocked false. You need to update this mirror details like this. I'm not getting that issue because this setting is already done. If you are unable to download from the remote repository, you need to update this mirror details in the settings.xml. So with this, you will be able to download the shared libraries from remote repository to local. So as part of your practice, you will use central repository, but in the real time, we are going to use remote repository only. In the company, we are going to use remote repository. For our trainings, we are using central repository. So how to work with the remote repository? Sir, who will set up this remote repository? Who will upload the jar files in the remote repository in the company? Is it a developer's duty or is it DevOps engineer duty? Repository setup comes under infrastructure. DevOps engineers are responsible to create the remote repositories for the project. Developers will not create. Sir, how I will know about my remote repository details in the company? So you no need to worry about it. When you join in the company, they will give you settings.xml file for you. You need to keep the settings.xml file in your system, maven local repository, or in the maven home directory. Then your maven projects will connect with the remote repository. So remote repository setup, uploading the jar files will be taken care by operations team. When you newly join in the project, you need to take the settings.xml file from your project team members. So in that settings.xml, remote repository details will be configured. Then when you run the maven project, your maven project will connect with the remote repository details. Are you able to follow me? So what we understood now, as part of today's session, we understood several topics. What is a nexus and why we need to go for nexus? Nexus is a Artifactory server which is used to store project build artifacts. And we understood how to set up nexus by using Docker container. And we understood how to create repositories in the nexus. We created a snapshot repository and we created release repository also. And we understood how to upload build artifacts into nexus repository by using clean deploy goal. And we discussed about what is shared library. So any jars that we are using in multiple projects, those are called as shared libraries. And we discussed about what is remote repository and how to create that remote repository. Remote repository is used to maintain shared libraries only. And we discussed about how to upload shared libraries into remote repository. Okay, manually we have uploaded that. Then how to configure remote repository details in the pom.xml. How to download the dependencies from the remote repository. Downloading shared libraries from remote repository. So I created a remote repository. I uploaded one jar into remote repository. That jar file I am downloading from the remote repository as a maven dependency. We discussed about what is a nexus and why we need to go for nexus. We discussed about how to set up nexus server by using Docker, and we discussed about creating the repositories in the nexus, and we discussed about how to upload artifacts into nexus, build artifacts by using clean deploy, and what are shared libraries, and how to create the remote repository, and how to upload shared libraries into remote repository, how to configure remote repository in the pom.xml, and how to download shared libraries from the remote repository. Okay, good. Now, anybody having any questions on this topic? With this, we understood one tool that we use in the real time, which is Nexus.
Sir, one doubt.
Yes,
So right now we uploaded the user-defined jar, right?
correct.
So is in real time people are uploading the predefined jar also?
Yes, sir. Predefined jars, the Spring Boot jars also they will download from the central, they will upload into remote. So you need to download every jar file from the remote only in the company.
So in that case, what group ID need to mention there? It's the
They will
like
take care of it.
com.ashok ID?
Whatever the group ID is there for that predefined jar files, na same group ID they will mention. org.springboot. Something like that.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Any other questions, anyone?
Sir, they will keep all the predefined jar in one repository, remote repository.
Yes, sir. They will keep in the remote repositories. Whatever the jars are required for the project, they will identify them and they will keep in the remote repository. So we can't connect with the central repository in the real time.
That repository name, they may be keep like a project specific project name with a repo set.
Sorry, can you come again?
That repository name, they will keep like some project name and a share repo or
Anything, sir. Whatever they want, they can keep. They will give you the settings.xml file that will contain your remote repository details. Repository name can be anything. I have given the name as Ashok IT Remote Repository. They may give it as a company name or they may give it as a project name.
Okay.
Once your practice is completed, guys, you delete the Nexus server because we use medium instance. It is not free of cost. Bill will be generated. Just for 1 hour practice, I am using this one. Once your practice is completed, you go and stop it or you terminate it. Better to terminate the instance so that you will not get any bill amount. If it is micro, no problem. It is free. But micro is not sufficient. 1 GB RAM is not sufficient for the Nexus. That's why I have taken medium machine. Once the practice is completed, you stop that machine. Now I have stopped that machine. You can stop and you can delete it once your practice is completed. For Solar Cube also, I used medium only, 4 GB RAM. For Nexus also, I used 4 GB RAM. 1 GB RAM not sufficient to run these servers.
So how to set up?
How do you set up? Nexus you can't set up in the Windows. You need to set up only in the Linux. Okay?
Just one thing, Ashok, here, one clarification.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, nothing. I think if you're using Java 8 version project, right, and Spring Boot version something like 3, so whatever jars required for the Java until Java 8 version, what required for Spring Boot 3, everything will be uploaded in the Nexus, right?
Yes.
Okay, so whatever we download, I think will not go with the central. Everything will go via the Nexus only.
Yes.
Nexus or JFrog.
Yes. In the company network will not allow you to connect with the central directly.
Okay, so it is purpose of the DevOps. They will
Take care
work
of
with
it.
the central repository to get all the data.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank
They
you.
will get all the dependencies required for the project and they will set up a remote repository. They will upload in the remote repository. They will give the remote repository details. Those details will be configured in the settings.xml. That settings.xml file will be shared with all the team members.
Okay, that we will load in the Maven and we will work on it.
Correct.
Okay.
So
Okay.
guys, please practice this.
Hello,
I will
sir.
upload. I'm uploading these notes in the
Hello,
portal
sir.
now.
Hello, sir. You told that the sharing the video, how to set up AWS.
You did not get that video?
No, sir.
Okay. I think someone is shared in the group already.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Yesterday I have shared one message to you regarding a resume.
I will check that, sir. Today, could you please forward? I'm getting a lot of messages in the WhatsApp. Could you please forward it again?
Okay, sure, sir. Sir, wonder.
Yes.
In initial days, you said you will explain why we could not able to create a starter project in the company. Some error is
Sorry.
initial days. You said right. You will explain why we could not able to create a starter project in the STS
In the
in the
company.
company. Yeah, in the company.
So if you are trying to create the starter project, the company network will block you. VPN connections will be available directly. If you are trying to connect with the central, they will not allow you. So you need to update your Maven settings.xml file properly. Then only you can create the project. Okay. Are you facing that issue in
XML
the?
file? Yeah. Yes.
Are you facing that issue in the company?
Yes, sir.
So that is, so the reason can be, one is VPN issue, second one central repository, and the third one settings.xml. So these three things you need to check.
That XML is proper only, so I could able to download other jars.
Are you
Any
able
other
to
reason?
are you able to create it from starter.io?
I didn't try that.
Yeah, start.spring.io, from create it from there and download it and import into your IDE.
Okay.
Try that once today. If it is not working, then we will see what is the other solution.
Sir,
Okay.
I have forwarded message. Please check.
Sure, sir. I will check that.
Yes, sir.
Guys, I have uploaded the notes of Nexus, so please do the practice today, and we'll meet again in the tomorrow session.
So today we have microservices class. Yesterday you told me.
No, sir. Today also it is not there, sir. I will update it.
Okay.
Okay, guys. Good. Thank you.